you're obviously grieving first that someone passed, and then now you're just looking at this like, what the hell happened? Like, was she harmed? Was she stabbed? Was she shot? Like, what happened? And no one would give us answers for like 3 years. Nobody, not even down to the coroner when they said it was undetermined. Straight after he was caught, he was like, it was a direct quote. He was like, he was ready and willing to do it again. And he was looking forward to killing again. Like, that was the only statement that he gave after he got caught.
What is going on, folks? Welcome to like a special episode of Unfiltered Bachelor. It's not too often where we go off the diverted path of talking not about relationships and dating and stuff like that, or the dating coaches and whoever we talk to. But I think in the grand scheme of relationships, one of the many parts of relationships, whether it's romantic or whether it's with family or friends, one of the parts that we deal with is grief. And there's nothing worse than grief when you're grieving over a parent. So my guest today has a full story about her own grief. And I know you've had a lot of other dynamics of mental health and emotional health in your life. So without further ado, we're just going to kick this off because there's not like a start here. There's just like, we just have to start. It's a return guest. She hasn't been on in a while, but we still keep in contact. It's the lovely Miss Christina. Christina, how you doing?
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
More than welcome. More than welcome. Thank you for reaching out to me and wanting to come on to tell this insane story. Like, it's in the title right now. I put true crime and grief because like I think that best like sums up like this entire scenario.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Extra kick in there too, because what a story it is to tell.
Yeah. So let's set the tone up for this real quick. It's your mother passed. Mm-hmm. Your real mother, biological mother, passed in 2019. And my only context with this, even as somebody who's known you for as long as I have, was I think it was maybe a day or two after that happened. You had come over. We had done an episode, and you're like, "Bro, my mom died," and I'm like, "Oh, that's so sad. Like, how did she?" And you're like, "There was blood in the house." I went to the house. There was blood. I saw it was with my sister. And I'm like, "Wait, was she murdered?" And you're like, "I don't know." And I'm like, so how did she die?" And you're like, "I don't know. We don't know. They won't tell us. They don't know. We don't know."
Yeah.
And that was the last that I ever remember about this. But I think that that's a good start of the rest of the unraveling process of what's happened in the last. When did all the news pop off? When did all this pop off?
May 30th, 2023. And it's really funny that you brought it up because I remember when you had brought it up prior about me telling you, like, it's one of those. Before all this was what it is, I told you. I told somebody because it's one of those things that you're just like, you can't explain it, but you got to like get it out there. So I'm really happy that you remember that because it's one of those, I had no filter. And clearly back then I was struggling with it. And now that years have passed, I can feel like I can semi come to grasp with what's going on. But I remember like, yeah, it's one of those, even you, what do you mean? Well, who died? Well, where she died? How she died? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then nothing for like 3 years.
Right.
So like
up until not a month ago.
Yeah.
And this if the story is like this is just a thread, the rest of the whole jacket unravels. Would you want to start? Where would you like to start?
Definitely Austin has a lot of things going on with is it going?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The serial killers. I feel like serial killers are
Where'd they come from?
Exactly. And I mean, they've been here all the whole time. And I feel like the fact that we're living in a world, like I said, we're millennials. I feel like, of course, I'm going to have to dissect into this. And then what's the wild world of me being in something like this?
Right.
And so there was a serial killer in Austin. And they had caught him, I believe, on May 30th. He had actually called into 311 and told on himself.
Okay.
And he had started off the recording with, my name is Raul Meza. I believe you're looking for me. And then they haven't put out the transcripts yet, but essentially he ended up confessing to multiple murders, including one being my biological mother's in 2019.
Wow.
So we then get a call. My sister got a call. And mind you, this is 2019. So put it in the back pocket. Kind of, this happened, move, don't know anything about it, couldn't get any information about it. So we move on, whatever.
Right.
2023, my sister got a call and she had APD come over and she had a lot of people come over and they were saying that we have an update on your mom's killing or her murder. And they said that we ended up finding the person and he is a serial killer. And of course, we were like shocked as fuck. Can I curse?
Yeah, of
course. We were
course.
shocked as fuck. Like, what do you mean? So it brought back all the pain and like the whole set of walking into that crime scene, what we found in 2019, and then me telling you and describing it. So when they had told us that, they had basically gave us a rundown and watery version of he turned himself in. He had ended up murdering an 80-year-old Mr. Fraga, and that was like the week before, and then they finally caught him, and then he had like opened up the floodgates of, by the way, I killed this person. I did a double homicide in San Antonio. And now all these links, like 10 to 12 cases are coming out with his DNA that they're linking. And then it was nice to have that closure of someone did it, but then we didn't realize why. We still don't really know why. So it's kind of weird. So then, by the way, Austin, APD, they all were like, oh, here's the news. Here it is. By the way, we're going to go to a press release. And good luck. In good riddance kind of a thing. And that was it. And then the next thing we know, we saw all this stuff on national TV. People started reaching out, NBC, CNN.
Did you find out a lot of details from the news first before you even... Oh, wow.
They didn't tell us jack squat in 2019.
Whoa.
Period. Up until her death certificate still said undetermined. They didn't tell us
so how. So coroner, nobody,
no one from 2019 to 2023.
3 years.
3 years.
Or 4 years.
No, 3
4 years. 4 years.
Yeah. It was wild. So we dealt with it back then. We had all these questions and then nobody said anything up until like a Tuesday that they were like, by the way, the serial killer killed her and this is what we did. And by the way, we actually knew who it was who killed her back in 2020. We just didn't catch him. We didn't even start that.
What?
So they had her information. They knew how she died, and yet they did not know. They didn't have the balls to tell my sister anything about it. So we had to learn.
So was this APD? Was this detectives? Who
APD,
knew all this
SVU, information? The crime scene people, the forensic lab. There was like a couple of detectives that were on that specifically, and the coroners.
So this is like multi-layered.
There's
of
a
like
lot of
different
people
departments.
That dropped the ball.
Whoa.
It's really it's trying to use my big words. It's disappointing, and it's really, really already like a slap in the face knowing that they had somebody that had this horrible history, mind you. Mm-hmm. We haven't gotten to the history of it.
Right.
And then knowing that he had killed a elderly man when that man's life could have 100% be saved had they caught him in 2020 with the CODIS DNA that they did get, and they did not file through with that.
Wow.
It's just horrible.
It is horrible. This is so horrible. So you find out all these details, and I guess it's just like step by step. How is this managing already, like maybe a wound that you thought was already healed, and it sort of be like, oh, you remember that wound that was already
Exactly.
Let me reopen that real quick. How was that, first of all?
Everybody asks us that, like, how does it feel coming out a couple years later, and then knowing the gravity of it, and like it makes sense now that are filling in the holes that we didn't know in 2019. So all that blood, all the stuff that I told you before, we didn't know how she died. We obviously knew something happened and there was a struggle, but we, had to read it through the media, or like the news people would like say something and we would just be caught off guard and kind of like have to, oh, okay. And then we had to go do our research. But it was one of those, like, it comes back to you full force. Mm-hmm. And that day I tried so hard to put that in the back of my mind. And I was doing fine. And then to have it pop up, and then not able to like grieve with my sister privately, they were like, by the way, we're going to go down to the news, and like, you have to, like, it's going to be in your face. So it was one of those, like,
wow.
It already hurt the first time, and then the second time, and then having it be national news, and then people like messaging us, like, it's wild. It is wild. It hurt. It hurt a lot.
I was going to say, how is your emotional and mental sort of going through this yet again, right? Like, how was that dealing with yourself again, being like, well, that was my mom, and I got to be sad. Like, what do I feel now knowing all the details? How was that managing all that?
Honestly, I think like there's not a handbook of how to feel, because who the fuck knows how to handle that shit. I will say that I have talked to my sister every single day for the past month, and it wouldn't be a suicide watch, but it's more like, like, how you doing? Like, are you okay? Because like, I think I'm disassociating most days, because mm-hmm. I feel like I before would have just sat and wallowed and just kind of like just be mad all over again and just kind of not like just want to quit. But I'm processing it healthily this time around for sure. And it's really nice to like, I don't know how to phrase it. It's nice to have my sister there, and then we can actually talk about this, because in 2019 we didn't talk about it. Like, we talked about it maybe twice, and then it was just too hurtful for her. So this time around, we have healthier ways to cope. We have definitely more communication. Mm-hmm. So it's nice to have that this time around, because the first time we just kind of stayed to ourselves and we didn't say anything. Mm-hmm. And then now it's kind of like we can group together, and we are looking for therapy for sure, because I feel like...
Were you in therapy prior to finding out the news again?
Yes, okay. I was. And they taught me how to like have like coping skills and like, try to like work through it. But now that I have more of the answers, it's much nicer now understanding what happened instead of not knowing what happened.
Clarity is always better than confusion.
It is.
In any situation, regardless if it's you and a romantic partner, you and a friend, you and family, or in this case, you and like just like something you're trying to process.
Yes.
And then to find out more details about the person who's responsible for all this. Let's dig into that a little bit, because I feel like of all the revelations, this almost feels like the ball was dropped so much from all these different departments, APD, coroners, detective, all the list. And then you have a name, you have a name, you have a face to the name. And now it's in the public. And now you're like, it'd be one thing, right? If like, somebody, and this is horrible, like this is gonna be a horrible example, but walk with me here. It'd be one thing if like maybe anybody you knew, family member, somebody died. It's kind of on the news. It's one of those news segments. It's not as publicized. It's just like, hey, this person, they got shot. They found that the killer, or this person got hit by a car. They found the person who was driving the car. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of story.
Yeah. It's like it starts and it ends. It made the news. It's semi in the public. This is a little bit different though, because this is not just in your local news. This is in local news on all the stations, regional news, national news. Univision was covering you, bro.
I don't even
you're
know
international.
My sister did all the talking. It was so funny because I was like, I don't know Spanish, but I was really happy that all these people have reached out, like right. NBC, the A&E crew for the documentary stuff.
Crazy.
Like, I'm so glad it's getting the attention now. But like you said, it's one thing to have like someone die, and then it versus, the world knowing, and then like people either having opinions, which I'm really happy that they seem to have the same opinion as I do. But it's, Michael Strayhorn said my sister's name. Like, is one of those things that we were just like, holy shit, is this life? Like,
right.
We really, we're still processing it. I don't think we're ever going to not process it.
Right.
But then when like you said, when they gave us a name in the face, like, mind you, all they said was he was a serial killer, and they kind of watered down like what he did before. And then when you Google it or when you look it up, this man has a rap sheet.
Let's get into this,
because
this is I only know, I kind of, okay, so I kind of left it as like, I read a few articles. I knew about one of the instances, and we'll get to it because I don't want to give anything away, because if people hear this, there's going to be a lot of WTF and going on the other side of this, on the other side of the headphones. But like, I had only read a lot of what was in a lot of news articles, and a lot of them, I'd say like 90% of them were the same.
Yeah.
You might get 10% different here, 10% different here. But the overall arching theme was, this guy has a past.
Yeah.
And it is not great at all. It's horrific.
Yeah.
It is mighty horrific.
He started so young. Like, that's the thing, that it's not even just the fact that he has a past. It's the fact that, like, this man was dangerous in the 80s, you know, or in the 70s, actually. So it's like, he just kept slipping through the cracks. Like,
right.
And then the world went of him getting out and being released. It's just wild.
Wow. Well, let's get into it. Okay, how did you find all this information first? You just dig yourself? You just Google?
I like had to say, and I guess this is also one of the processing that I never realized until now, but sitting and looking at this person and like Googling this person and then finding out that, you know, it wasn't just a prior murder. It was a rape and it was a torture of an 8-year-old. And then it was kind of horrifying to hear that. And then to find out that he had already done something again prior before that. It's like, it just kept going and going.
The 8-year-old story was what I heard, and we'll get into this details. So let's start from the beginning of what you found, because this is, she literally has for people that can't see, you can lift it. For the people that can see, lift it. She has a hole. This is a whole,
like, all the things that I couldn't.
Legal pad.
This is as much as I know now than I did in 2019. Which
She's flipping.
Like, it is wild. Like,
she's flipping.
Like, and this man's stuff just keeps on going. Like, and that was the other thing. I read so many articles, and like, I went back all the way back to like the 70s and like read all these things, and it's like it opens up my mind, and then it kind of makes me feel like, okay, well, this is how she died. And then, like, you know, like, I understand what it's building up to. I can understand his motives and like the way that he works, if you will. So he started back in 1975. Wow. He was 15 years old, and he had broke into a convenience store downtown, and he had robbed this 26-year-old, I believe, Durley Ramirez. I'm trying to say everybody's victim or victim families, because I don't want their names to, you know, to go to the wind. So Durley Ramirez, I believe he was like 26 or 27, and Raul had marched him to the back, stole some money, told him to turn around and get on his knees, and he shot him in the back. Now, he left him for dead, and he fortunately he didn't die, but he did get paralyzed, and he ended up coming back, and he testified against him. So Raul was sent to prison at the age of 16, and he was there for 5 years, and he ended up getting out. And while he was on parole in 1981, I believe. Sorry, I had to like look at the notes, make sure.
But the Wikipedia you wrote down.
I'm telling you, like, it's one of those things that, like, you know, at any other story, like, you can like follow, and it's a rabbit hole, and you're just like, okay, it's kind of one of those things. Like, I have to know. My obsession now is like, it touched me so personally. It's like, I have to know more. So I'm that person that looks up all these interviews. Like, it's wild. Okay. So let's see. 1975, 1982, while he was on parole, he then had found an 8-year-old Kendra Page. And this was actually big in Austin, which this is before either of us were born. Right. So it was kind of like, hearing this again is kind of like, oh, this is who ended up killing my birth mother. Like, this is wild. So she was 8 years old, and she was riding her bike in front of her school. I believe it's like Langford Elementary. It's like in South Austin. But she was riding her bike, And somewhere along the line, she met Raul, and he had raped, tortured, and then murdered her. And then he left her body in the dumpster, to which children found.
No.
The kids from the school found the body, and he had like just tossed her. It wasn't like trying to hide her. So he just tossed her in the trash. So then this was going out in the 80s, and it was like right after New Year's. And so for like 3 or 4 days, he like was in hiding, and then he ended up turning himself in. He also turned himself in the first arrest. That comes into a pattern that we're going to find out.
Okay. So
he turned himself in, and he was like, I killed her. So in Texas, if you admit to it, you don't have to, you don't have to face the death penalty. I don't remember what it's like back then because it was before we were born. But
right.
He was supposed to serve a 30-year sentence. And
served like 10 or 11 years of
10 or 11, got out for good credit because he accumulated it. He got out for good credit. And then he ended up going back in 1994 for violating his parole because he ended up like staying out per curfew. But he ended up having one of the highest supervision. It's called, sorry, they had like named it specifically. It's like I'm so sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Special Condition X. That's a thing in Texas.
Special Condition X. What's this?
So he is on the top of like the radar. Like he had like a GPS bracelet. So when he got parole, or after he got out from Kendra Page's murder in 1993, he had to have a GPS. He had to, still go back to like the halfway house. He had to like, check in, but he was able to be released, and people did not want him in their cities. Like this man went from Wichita, San Antonio, El Paso.
Whoa.
I mean, like all over Ohio. They sent him to Kansas at some point, or Kentucky, because all these people knew who he was, and they protested so much that they like kicked him out of the city. So he couldn't get anywhere to like once he was released, essentially. So then he landed at his grandparents' on their farm, like outside of San Antonio, and he ended up like abusing them and like had terroristic threats that he was doing. I don't even know what that was about, but
terroristic threats
towards his grandparents, and so he had to be moved back into. I believe his mother ended up taking him in, but he ended up getting kicked out of that because nobody wanted them in his neighborhood. Like, obviously, for good right,
yeah,
for good conscience for that. So then he ended up going back to prison because he violated his parole. And then at one point in time, they found a knife in his cell. And they added like another 4 years onto that. And then, I'm so sorry. Like, again, if you take the time, definitely Google it. It's wild. I'm just trying to put
it's already wild. Yeah.
Like, it's just this man just keeps going and going and going. Let's see. 2005, he actually sued Texas.
For what?
For he had too strict of let me see, where is this? He had too much of a strict policies to keep him getting work. So like he had to register as a sex offender, obviously.
Yeah, because that's what he did.
Because yes, which they ended up redacting and like they cut it off. So he ended up getting convicted, or he was accused of it, but he wasn't convicted because he upped to the murder. He like was like, okay, I did the murder. So they chose that over putting. Oh my God, words, Christina. Other than putting sex offender, even though he sexually assaulted her, like they dropped that. Because murder, I guess, is just better or bigger. So they dropped that. So he was fighting Texas because he was upset that he had too many regulations of he couldn't get a job because everybody knew who he was, but he wasn't technically a sex offender because he wasn't convicted of that crime. So he sued Texas for having
Two strict laws
for him to get work. So he can, get out of the detain hall or wherever he was. And I believe that he ended up winning.
What?
Yeah, it's wild.
No.
So Texas ended up, he got like relieved of that. And then
let's pause right there.
Right.
This is like if your kid, if you put them in timeout and they're like, listen, I'm going to sue you because my timeout is too strict.
Yes.
I need to be at least on the phone for 3 hours. And you're like, you get no phone.
Yeah.
You get no TV. You get no nothing because you did this. You did this.
You pay the price. You should do that. He was so offended, and it was just an inconvenience to him that he was labeled a sex offender, and he had to register it, even though he wasn't convicted of it.
Sir, your crimes are an offense.
I was about to
society.
say,
Sir,
the inconvenience, the audacity. Like I was sitting here reading this, and mind you, again, like I'm reading all these terrible things and just crime after crime and violent crimes at that. So again, it isn't just somebody that has weed or is, selling or even, I guess, even a regular murder. It's more of these just violent, like terrible things.
Yeah.
On top of this. So this man has gotten away with a lot. I mean, he's taken his time and served his time, but obviously it's like a history just keeps repeating itself.
Right.
Every couple of years, he just keeps going back in.
He just gets a little itch to do a little bad.
You, and it's wild because when they picked him up, essentially in May 30th or June 1st or whatever it was, he was riding the bus on Lamar with a bag, like a little knapsack, backpack, whatever. And it had a .22 pistol. It had rounds in it. It had duct tape, flashlight, and zippy ties. And he was ready to go.
He was off
ready
to go. Go off somebody else.
Yes. Riding the bus, the North Lamar. I guess it's like the L1.
What?
I mean, that's what it's called.
Yeah, okay.
Dude, it's wild, though. So I'm just like, man, like, they were around.
So they caught him when he came off? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Or did he just like walk up and he's like, I got all this stuff. So.
What I believe is that he was on the phone. Well, remember I told you he called in 311 and he told on himself. And while he was telling them, he confessed to Gloria's murder. He confessed to Fraga's. He confessed to the San Antonio ones. He ended up hanging up the phone because he could hear the sirens in the background. And they ended up tracking him from the phone call. I guess he was using like a phone booth, or I don't know if he was on a cell phone, but they tracked him, and then they could, tell where his area was. So that's initially what I have been reading.
They can track you on a cell phone for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. So they ended up catching him like about to get onto the bus, and like he like went with no issue. I mean, the man has a pattern of telling on himself.
Let's keep going. What else do we got?
Holy Lord. Where do I start? It's just wild. Let me see. He returned to prison in 2006, I believe, for having a weapon in jail. I think I said that he had like a knife. He then ended up getting out, and he was paroled. He ended up getting a driver's license in 2012, which was across the street at a halfway house, which was right across the street from Gloria, where Gloria lived. So on east side.
And for all context, Gloria is your
my biological mother.
Okay.
Yes. So this is where he moves in, and there was an incident that I found today that I didn't know before, but there was an incident in 2013 that involved him, and I can't find what it is or what happened. I'm still looking for that part, but he was involved in an incident that ended up putting him back into jail for another like 4 years.
Wow.
So I want to know what happened with that. But or until 2016. And then per media and per people like I've talked to, he essentially was really friendly with Gloria. I'm guessing this is how they like put two and two together. That's how they met.
Okay.
Because he lived across the street.
Where was this at?
In East Austin.
Okay.
Near, oh my God, Givens?
Near Givens.
So like in that area.
Okay.
So it's not the best, but.
I mean, it's Austin, right? I mean, even if it's not the best, it's like everything around it. Like it's not too far from something around it being.
Yeah, for sure.
Being okay, yeah.
But essentially, he had befriended her, and I don't know like
the full context.
The day of, like, I don't know, like, I haven't heard his side, or who even knows if we'll hear that. But either way, he ended up strangling her and raping her, which we didn't know she was raped. Okay, me backtrack. When I told you that we went into the crime scene and we found, all the stuff, there was a condom, there was lube, there was a detective glove, all of this wrapped up, sitting on the table. Like, they just didn't care enough to take it with them. So we had to put 2 and 2 together. All this blood, the crazy, like, her house was kind of like all over, and then we see this condom, and so we could only, put that 2 and 2 together.
Right.
And then fast forward to 2023, when they told us, they were like, by the way, she was raped. So that was like another thing that just, it's kind of like, she was murdered. We knew who it was in 2020. We dropped the ball on that, and then, by the way, she was raped. And we didn't even have the decency to tell you privately, really,
right,
before everybody knew. So it's one of those, and it was a violent one.
Wow.
So, and then he ended up, in 2023 from 2019. We don't know what he did in between. Who knows what he's done in between? I mean, he was living, I guess, in pandemic time.
Uh-huh.
Which, ironically, he lived down the street from when I first moved in Pflugerville, like when I first got married.
Uh-huh.
So, like, when we moved in, he literally lived, like, a block down.
No.
This entire time. And then he was picked up where Sonia, like, a block down from where Sonia. It's just ironic. Like, it's these little things. Like, it's just.
Is it ironic?
I mean, life story of ironic sin. I'm tired of it. Give me a freaking break, bro. Like, I'm tired. It's just one of those things. Like, you're not aware of, like, your surroundings. Like, honestly, like,
he could have been anywhere at any point in time.
Dude, it's wild. And he murdered Mr. Fraga, who was a ex parole officer who had actually fought for this man in the 90s. That he could be rehabilitated. That thing. I'm sorry, I can't even believe it. Obviously, I can't even say it because that man clearly can't. But Mr. Fraga and his family, like, fought for this man for like 20-something years.
Okay.
They actually got a case from Texas versus them not to have any contact with Mr. Meza because. Mm-hmm. They were like, I guess the state thought it was inappropriate. Like, they were funding him. They were giving him, I believe, like, attorneys and, like, all this stuff to, like, help him. And they ended up winning that case. Texas lost. And so when he ended up getting out in 2016, he lived at the halfway house. And then he ended up murdering Gloria in May of 2019. And then he moved in with Mr. Fraga in October 2019. So, like, he had just basically been hiding in plain sight with an ex-parole officer.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
That's wild.
If you can bamboozle all these people, like...
What are you doing? How?
I don't know. I mean, clearly...
The camera got you doing that.
I'm just saying. It just mind blows that, like... One, we're living in a world where I mean, obviously injustice happens everywhere.
Right.
I get that. Like, absolutely. My troubles are no better than anybody else's. But it's one of those things where it's just like, you just kept dropping the ball. And it's like a slap in the face when you guys knew in 2020 who this person was that murdered and violently raped a woman. Mm-hmm. And he was out there. And you had his information and nobody checked. I read online that they said that they had... the email just kind of got shuffled to the side because,
Email of what?
Of the connection from CODIS. So CODIS is where you put your DNA.
Oh,
so they hit back and they were like, hey, by the way, this is the person that did it.
Right.
And then in 2020, and it was like in June, I believe, nobody saw that email. Like, it just got lost in the files.
Wow.
And mind you, they have an open investigation about it now. As they should, because so many balls were dropped, and Mr. Fraga would probably be alive 100% to this day had they caught him in 2020 and put him behind bars for her murder. Like, it's just wild. Like, what are we doing?
So many, like, so much of, like, it seems like just cracks in the system are on full display right now. Man, what else do you got there?
No, I'm just making sure I didn't miss any of, like,
You said something about San Antonio. What did he do in San Antonio?
So he admitted, okay, so the 14-minute conversation that he had with the detective with 311 when he turned himself in.
Okay.
He had admitted to killing Mr. Fraga. Then he was like, oh, and by the way, in 2019, I killed a lady on Sarah Drive, which then they went back and they looked between 2012 and like 2019. Like murders or anything that popped up, and hers was obvious, like that fit that description. And then they said that he had confessed to a double homicide in San Antonio, and he didn't say the years. He never gives the years really. He just says a couple years ago. So they had to like Google it. But what I heard the last was that they did have a hit on it, and that there was a double homicide that I guess was either unsolved or it was misidentified, like they did with Gloria's. They said it was undetermined how she died. Let's back up to that.
Right.
And so now finding out and reading per the affidavit that they knew very well that it was a strangulation. And all these other...
Were they never going to tell you unless like this guy came out?
Yes, you have to believe that. Like if Mr. Fraga hadn't died, like they had the information in 2020. Why couldn't you just pick up the phone and call my sister? Hey, have the respect to fucking just say,
right.
Hey, by the way, this is who did it, like,
this is what, or like something new that we figured out.
Something. They didn't even, and then to tell us like on national TV that she was raped, it was one of those things that you're just like, okay, you just take it. You just take what you can and then process it later. But it just, I love my sister, which is a wild story, by the way, because I found my sister.
Right. I remember this. Yeah.
Like I found her. I was adopted. A backstory. I was adopted, and I ended up finding my sister when I was 23, and she was 22 at the time. And then I ended up meeting Gloria, who is my biological mother. And we had this relationship for like 10 years, 11 years, up until when she died. And then it was like, well, what the fuck? Like, nobody hardly ever meets their like real family, especially being an adoptive. Like the percentage is super low. Like you ever find your real family,
right? And
the fact that I found not only Gloria, but I have a baby sister who's only like literally a year less or younger than me. So it's one of those things that I was just like, holy shit! Like he has this great beginning, and then it's like all for it just to get squandered out by a fucking serial killer.
Not just like a regular killer.
Yeah, not even just a regular person.
It's got to be,
the worst of the worst.
Right. I was just going to say, like, 2023, all the Netflix and reality shows and everything. It's got to be a fucking serial killer.
Of course it does.
Of course.
Of course.
Wow.
I feel like how dramatic my life has always been, and like all the stories I tell you, it's like,
right.
You never know what I'm going to come out with my mouth. Like,
if this was not on the news and you were like, dude, my mom died by a serial killer,
yeah.
then like, you're pulling my leg. What are you doing? Stop it. Stop lying.
It's wild. Like, and I just so the day that we ended up coming across the crime scene and stuff is they had given my sister the keys, and literally not by the way, not a heads up, not brace yourself. It literally was, here's the key. That's it. We walked into the house. Mind you, we knew that she had passed. We did not know how she passed.
So you're like probably assuming like she's like laying on a bed or something,
yeah,
like peacefully, or like they, maybe she fell down. I don't know.
Something. She hit her head, something. Not one, any helpful hint. So we walk into, here's like, I'm happy with telling because this is processing it. And again, This is processing it healthy, so I can talk about it. So my sister and I ended up going into the house, and we were looking around because she had to find, I believe it was like the will or like the house papers or something. I mean, honestly, after someone dies, especially your parent, like, again, there's not really a handbook other than this is what you need to do and get their files, adjusted correctly, whatever. So we're looking around. We're looking around, and mind you, I've been in the house like more than a handful of times, so I kind of knew my way around. And she was like, just look for papers, look for whatever you can find. And I was like, all right, cool. So we were going down the hallway, and there was 2 bedrooms, and then there's a bathroom at the end of the hallway. And immediately, looking down the hallway, I can see, like blood, like little blood marks here and there. And me thinking, okay, if she died, maybe that, you know, she fell. Maybe she fell. Like that's what it was. So I start going towards the back, towards the bathroom, and then the bedroom, and at the very end of the hall. And walking up, you can, especially if like you're in medical or like if you've just ever been around a lot of blood, you can smell what blood. It smells like iron.
Right. Yeah. Metally.
It's a strong, yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's one of those type of smells. And so I could start smelling, you know, metal or the iron essentially.
Yeah.
And so I turn from the bathroom to look into the room, and it's every bit of a crime scene that you could think of. And it was one of those, like, there was blood on the floor, there was blood on the bed, there was blood on the ceiling. Mind you, we had no idea how she died. So walking into something like this and then kind of like looking around and like taking it all in before she could come back to, like, you know, whatever, before I could like get out of the room. I wasn't fast enough, which I hate myself for, but my sister had walked in behind me and she saw everything. And it was one of those things that you have to take in. Like, you have no idea what the fuck you're looking at. You're obviously grieving first that someone had passed, and then now you're just looking at this like, what the hell happened? And
Right.
then we both ran out of the house because I believe she puked, and she just wailed the worst cry, dude. Like, it was one of those, like, you know, like, just in the moment, like, holy shit. Like, she just found, not only did her mom pass, it's this horrific, like, crime scene that nobody warned you about, and then now you had to put two and two together as if what happened, because now you want to know what the fuck happened. Like, what happened? Like, was she harmed? Was she stabbed? Was she shot? Like, what happened? And no one would give us answers for like 3 years. Nobody, not even down to the coroner when they said it was undetermined. Allegedly, you know. But now, fast forward, we know that they knew all along that it was not only a strangulation, but it was a rape. And then on top of that, they had his DNA, and then nobody did anything with it. So it's one of those things I just feel like it just keeps on like piling, and you're just like, wait, what the fuck? And it's just like, holy moly. And then that bastard, after he was caught, he was like, it was a direct quote. He was like, he was ready and willing to do it again. He was looking forward to killing again. Like, that was the only statement that he gave after he got caught.
What?
Yeah. It was like a week after he was like in Travis County book for Mr. Fraga's death, which is like, what the fuck? Like, wait, first off, you were ready to kill, like,
I mean, you had the bag for it, right? Didn't
yes,
you have all
like,
the stuff in there?
He had a serial killer kit. Like, that's what they call
Yeah.
it. Like, it's wild. Like, so I don't know. I'm happy that I didn't cry that time. It's okay to cry. It's okay to cry.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I just want to paint like the background of, we literally walked into a freaking like crime scene.
A crime scene.
And then me being me, and I'm glad that I did it. I still don't know why, obviously, but I took a Snapchat. I saved it. I didn't send it to anybody. It's clearly like one of those things I kept for so long, and I'm glad I did. And I filmed like walking around, and I showed all the spots and everywhere. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. And as we were coming back out, we ended up noticing that there was a condom on the table, again, in like the glove, and like there was lube. And we were just, why didn't you take this?
Yeah.
Why didn't you take this? Like, if this is evidence, why didn't you take it? So I'm glad I kept the whole video, because it showed like exactly how we walked into it. It was just one of those, what the fuck?
Right.
Like, how I don't even know how I process it still. Like, it's one of those, like, I can talk about it now, but it's like, I don't know. I don't know if it's ever gonna make sense. You know,
It may never.
Yeah, it probably won't. But I just, I feel more closer to healing now that I know, obviously, who did it. The why is still out there, which this man had said that he was promised 25 or a percentage of the house if the reason why he murdered her. Out of all the people, that's what he said. We don't have a nephew in the family.
What's he gonna do with a quarter of a house?
I don't know. Obviously, he didn't. I mean, they ended up selling the house, and I don't know exactly like what's going on with that or like, who ended up getting it. But like, it's one of those things like, it's just kind of weird that he had thrown that out there. And I don't know if that was he was telling the truth or if he was just trying to like, save himself or like, I don't know. There's so many ins and outs of it. That's the one thing that we're still working on.
What if you never get the why?
I mean, I know it's not going to bring her back. I totally understand that. It's not going to bring her back for her.
Right,
for
but
Sonia.
What if for closure purposes with all this, what if you never get a why?
I mean, I think we can definitely process that. I mean, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't really think about that other than we're going to have to get over it. I mean, we're so far up to knowing now what we didn't know then. I feel like it'd be great to know why. It would be awesome to know the whole story for sure. If he ever like, told us, cool. But if not, then I think that this is, at least it's bringing awareness to the case and then to, opening up the justice system and all the failures to that. But I feel like if we don't ever know why, it's okay for me at least because I would love to know why, but I can't make somebody tell me the truth or if he ever tells it. Right. Who knows? I'm sure we might have another segment in like 3 years when it's like, well, but it's like, I mean, I can understand that because it's part of life. You don't always know the answers.
Right.
But I'm happy that I can heal with my sister now properly and, trying to figure out the ins and outs and everything. Because I'm still learning. Like, I want to know, they wouldn't let us see in the crime scene photos, even though you would think that.
But you're like, bro, I already got a video. So like.
Yeah, but I wanted to see, like, she was found differently.
Oh.
So it still has like questions of like what his motives are. There are 2 motives that he does have, that he strangles people and then he sexually assaults them.
Right.
And then murders them. So
there's a pattern with this.
There's a pattern.
Yeah.
And then he also like tells on himself. The man has not lied yet. So that nephew comment has thrown me for a loop.
Nephew about what?
We don't have a nephew. The reason why he had murdered her was that he was essentially like hired by somebody, a nephew in the family. And then he did the deed. I don't know if there was money exchange. I would love to know if the detectives could get onto that, look into that, because it's just one of those things that why would he say that? And then I don't know. Maybe there's a lead. There's something obviously to it.
Right.
But I don't know. I would just like to have a little bit more
context with that.
Communication too. Yeah. Like I would love to have other information that I don't have to learn from the media.
Speaking of that, how communicative has the, I guess, police department or anybody who's now the reopening of this case, how communicative have they been with you and your sister? Well,
APD and any of the detectives have yet to like answer phone calls or emails, which I have personally sent and, made sure that I've sent many of them to make sure it gets to the right people, not one word. So I feel like, how dare you do the first time without telling us? And then how dare you do it again, knowing that the world is watching you, or at least Austin is. And, there's a whole case of mishandling and they're looking into it. How could you not reach back? Like, do your job.
Mm-hmm.
Just reach back out. Have respect for the family. Like,
right.
Please. I would love to have a conversation with them.
Right.
But I can't get in touch with them. It's frustrating.
When's the last time you spoke to somebody from any of the law enforcement departments or anything like that?
The day that they told us. The day that they
told us. So like a month
ago.
ago.
Yeah. Not one person, but everybody else can reach out to us, which is, again, I'm ever so grateful for like NBC, Univision, like
Univision.
Oh my God, I said it wrong the whole time, and like they were like, "You're saying it wrong," and I was like, "Damn it!" But like, it's nice to be heard through like KVU, KXAN, like even people like the Lady Bird. There's a whole group on Facebook for the Lady Bird killers. The Lady Bird
Lake Killer.
Oh my God. And so somebody had reached out, or I reached out to one of them because they had posted about Raul, and everyone kind of thought they said serial killer, and then they were like, oh, nope, wrong serial killer. There's 2 of them, by the way. But one of their people in the group was absolutely so sweet, and like she was like, here are like anything you need. And then she actually had like the A&E people reach out to us, like CNN, like I mean, like all these big people. So it was nice to have other people making up for what the detectives
the lack of attention that they're bringing to
absolutely. Like, it's if you keep failing the system, like you're just failing and failing and failing, just,
Why do you think that this has failed? It's failed to go under the radar, or it's failed to go over the radar or like on the radar at all.
Essentially, when she first died, I really believe that it had to do everything with demographics, and like she's an older Hispanic lady on the east side. And in Austin, if you're not from Austin, the east side has nice parts and then doesn't have so nice parts. And coming from, the fact that she lived across from a halfway house, it kind of, in the area it was in, like it just wasn't the greatest. And I feel like had it been a white woman or, a beautiful white young girl, like even like Kendra Page, like I'm glad that she got enough recognition for that. But I feel like she just kind of was just pushed to the side. It was just another East Side killing, if you will.
Wow.
Which is wild to think that they just kind of look over so many people's cases.
Ethnicity.
I believe it. I believe that because you already, again, essentially you ended up getting hits on the DNA and, helpful other information, but they didn't even care to return it. So it was one of those things that had she had been, a Karen from the West Side, I'd believe that people would be more intuitive to like open up and talk and communicate when, if you're on the east side or the southeast side or wherever, it just was different. So it could definitely have been handled much better than what it was.
Right. Wow.
It's just sad. It's just sad to think that like, these are human beings and they have family, and for one person to drop the ball, like that's everything to somebody. Had they just told my sister, everything, the nitty gritty, I think that would have been so much better than to walk into the crime scene itself without
context.
Dude, he literally like gave us the keys. Like he literally was just like the crime scene people that were picking up stuff. They were there to pick up evidence and stuff, but not the condom and the lube in the glove. They didn't pick that one up. They left it there for whatever reason.
Wow.
But they took like nail clippings.
Because that's really important.
It was her own clippings, I believe. So I'm like, it's just, come on.
There's a lot of fishy stuff going on.
It is wild. And I feel like I should get paid extra for doing
their job.
How can we be safe and honestly in a community that like prides themselves and like does all, like they were so excited that they found this serial killer. Like I was watching one of the press release when they actually originally did it, and like he was like, it was a manhunt, and we found him, and then
it was a manhunt.
Yeah, or like they were looking for him, and like he was just this bad person. But mind you, didn't even talk about Gloria's death, so it's like they were so excited they found him, and then it's kind of like, but you dropped the ball on everything else. So.
Right, but what about the attention to the lack of attention to this particular case that this guy did that you guys just caught? Like, can we talk about this for a second?
Yeah.
Make it make sense. That's
exactly.
what the kids say.
Exactly. That was so sad, actually. She literally was like, it was like a Dallas one. She was like, make it make sense, essentially. And I was like, that makes sense. Like, I don't know, like, I'm glad I'm like so comfortable with like talking to you about those things. Cause like in the moment when people you have no idea, they're like, did you know that you're, like all this information?
Bro, that must be the worst. And I think that's part of the reason why I didn't want to do a whole bunch of digging. Cause I want to be like, did you know that? Bro, I'm not here to give you trivia. I'm here to ask you questions. Yeah. And I'm here to find out, because like, if somebody's listening to this on the other side of this, right? They're not on the hot mic. They're listening to this with their headphones. They're driving. They're doing whatever throughout the day, the night, whatever. They don't know as much as I don't know. And like, how about we become informative and not try to play the trivia game with like, did you know? And how did you feel when you found out? And you're like, bro, I just found out.
Yeah.
Give me a second. And they're like, answer the question.
Exactly.
Like,
I was kind of on the spot. And
I don't know.
Like, I totally get the whole like being bombarded. Like everybody was absolutely nice about it, but it was also one of those, they had really good questions and like, are you planning to sue the city?
Yeah.
Which we are looking into legally. Absolutely. Like, I'm not going to sit here and let all this pass by. I feel like, especially with somebody of like any platform, my platform, your platform, just bring awareness, because it's one of those stories that everybody's going to be like you said earlier, what the fuck? Like,
right.
And I'm glad I'm not the only one that thinks that, because it just gets horrible and horrible the more you like go
back. If any one of my friends came up to me and was like, bro, my, and I feel like I've met somebody and they're like, oh yeah, there was like sister or mom or somebody died from a serial killer. So I feel like I met one person in my life of almost 35 years, right? But when you hear that story and like to think like, bro, what is I think anybody in their right mind is going to think like, what the fuck?
I'm really happy though that people are still stuck on none of this would have happened had he stayed in jail with the 8-year-old, with Kendra Page's killing. Because if you rape and, kill a child, I would think that you should stay in there much longer and not get any good behavior kind of thing. I feel like I'm still stuck on that. Like, the justice system kind of really let that down.
Yeah.
For sure.
For sure. With that, and like, and I was just thinking too, I'm like, obviously if he's going to sue the state for being like, hey, I can't get a job.
Too hard.
Right. If it's too hard, I can't get a job. Like, there's no reason why you shouldn't sue the city or sue APD or sue whichever department that like it feels necessary to do in this process, because like, again, if something like that can happen, this can totally happen, and this can totally win too.
I will say that we have been through.
What's that process been like? Yeah.
That's another thing is also, you would think that's a slam dunk, right?
Right.
Like, we have the money to meet. Like, it's not even about money. Like, I can honestly say I'm grateful that we can say that it's not about the money, but we went through at least 3 or 4 lawyers, super lawyers, by the way. That's what they're like classified online, and not one person wants to go up against APD.
What was the reasoning?
I actually have one of the.
You got a quote? We got an email? We got an email. You got the receipts, girl?
It's just so frustrating, because it's like, again, it's a no-brainer. It's all this injustice, and again, if Mr. Fraga's family even jumped on that case, like, absolutely, like, it could have been 100%. A whole human life would have been still alive had they caught him and done their job. And it's frustrating.
Right.
Okay, so I'm so sorry to hear about the tragedy. My deepest condolences go out to you. Many times a civil liability case against the police is an extremely difficult case to prove, or even almost impossible. Police are given broad immunity, and there are not many cases that are truly viable. Even though I'm not allowed to, or we're not able to pursue your case, I'm happy to discuss it further with you, which is great, because, we're setting up to go meet and see who we need to go, I guess, in that direction. But it's really disheartening to not only like have all this shit happen to you, and not even just me, like to my sister, and just seeing her like just being let down from left to right. And again, it's not about the money. Like, I'm so grateful to know that we have the money to do that.
Right.
But it's nobody wants to go up against it. They all have like, good graces, I guess, in Austin. Like, they have good policies, or they're in the goods with, Austin itself, I guess.
With the city. With
the city. So they're in good standing. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Words.
All the words. I'm just telling you, it's just really just it hurts. Like, I don't even know if we're going to like find a great one that's going to like take on to this, like, we have people that we're working with, but it's one of those things where it's just like, are they just going to like pull out? Or it's not even about like the money. It's the fact that we want somebody to be held accountable, period. I think anybody should.
Right.
Especially when you drop the ball to another life that could have been saved. I wouldn't want that on my fucking conscience.
Right.
Jesus. But like, and I'm so happy again, like it's so nice to like talk about it, because it's not just a KVU like 20-minute interview, or like, a phone
and then they only use like a
second of it. Like I just want to put as much information and just like, shake the world and be like, what the fuck? Like, as long as I'm not the only one, processing it correctly, I feel like I'm happy that there's outrage. I've read, other people's comments like, holy shit, why the fuck was he let out in 82? Or like, this doesn't make any sense. And then to find out that there's probably more cases linked to him, which, you know, I wouldn't want to be on my conscience with that, knowing that this man, you know, has admitted to like all these other cases, and
right.
then, you know, nobody really, like, they didn't catch it, or like I hope that it's not where they found the evidence in those San Antonio cases, and then, you know, just didn't do anything about it either. That would suck.
But maybe.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, and it just hurts my heart for all the families out there that, you know,
this guy's impacted.
And it sucks. It really does. It sucks. Like, it's just mind blowing. Like, what the fuck? Like,
you're living in a movie.
Let me tell you, dude. Like, it comes in waves as far as like the crying. Like the day I read the affidavit, which again, by the way, it was sent to me from a news reporter, which I'm so everly grateful for, because Texas has not, again, reached out to us or even helped us to find this affidavit. Like,
wow.
They wouldn't even provide us for anything. So when I initially read it, it was very graphic. It was, and then it also included Mr. Fraga's death, which was very graphic. So it's one of those things that just, it's like all the pieces are there. Why can't somebody connect this? Why, you know, like there's so many like loopholes and like shit in the system that you're just like, oh my gosh.
Right.
Like it's apparently it's easy to get away with murder. So
well.
That's wild.
Well.
And that's what I have to say.
Just say that louder for everybody out there.
It's just, I mean, it just is a disappointment and it's frustrating, but I hope that we find something.
But heaven forbid you get a DWI in this city.
Oh, God. You know, I would have to play the, do you know who I am? You have let me down. I just feel like, you know, there are bigger issues out there other than.
No. It's all about the DWIs here in Austin. It's not about the murders.
The roundups.
Right. It's all about that.
Jesus. It's one of those things, like I said, like it comes in waves, and it's just one of those things I just want everybody to just honestly go down that go down that rabbit hole.
Go down the rabbit hole.
Seriously, like you're only hearing like half of like really what I'm saying, because it's just so much deeper than that. And then also the person that sent me, I was telling you earlier, the person that sent me this fandom, like somebody already has like a little like fandom base of him. Remember the serial killer? Remember I told you, like they sent it to me, and there was like a fangirl site for like serial killers. It was like serial killer Wikipedia or something like that, but it's like a fan. Like people are like all for it, and I was like, what the fuck? First off, who the fuck sent me that?
That's
they
grimy.
Like, right? I was like, Jesus Christ.
So these are people like being like, wow, look at what he did? They're like glorifying it?
They're kind of glorifying it. I mean, like, you have like fandoms and like, you know.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I didn't think it'd be this soon, one. And then two, he's an old man at this point. He's like 62.
We don't kink shame, but also like maybe get a new kink.
Maybe pick up a book. Maybe keep your fucking hands off of people. You know, take up crocheting. I heard that's great.
Right.
Like it's
don't
wild.
Glorify a killer.
Yeah.
Don't glorify like go look at feet pics online or something. Go do something. Go do something else. I mean,
and then send it to me, right. By the way, because somebody sent it to me through.
Somebody sent this to you though.
Through like it was a screenshot, and it was sent through a profile that ended up getting, like they deleted it. So they saw that I saw it. They deleted it. So when I go back to the profile, like there's no one there. It's like user doesn't exist. Oh. But someone had enough balls to, you know, send it to me. I was like, how disclassy is that?
That's kind of creeps and geeps too.
Right?
What if it's a dude?
Oh, that dude? No.
It's not the dude? He doesn't have like Instagram access and shell?
No. Oh, I never thought about it. No, I don't think he has any. I don't think he has internet stuff, but I definitely think
do they give him 30 minutes to do internet things?
I don't know. That would have to be a really good question to ask the detectives. If they could call me back, I'm going to put that on my list to ask, because that is wild. Like, I do know that he does like to taunt. They had told us that he likes to taunt the family, which is absolutely disgusting. Like, the Kendra Page's older siblings were on the news recently too, and like they were saying like how he like would fuck with them. Like he would call them from like the jail and be like, oh, by the way, this is what I did to your baby sister. Like it was horrible. First off, who the fuck gives him a right to like call those people? But secondly, like
they don't have blocked numbers. Like, bro, what?
Yes,
Also, how do you get their number?
I'm telling you, apparently jail.
Who's feeding this man information?
I want to know who's paying also his bill. Like
that's what you're telling me beforehand.
Who's gotten him all these like plea deals, like that literally like got him out of like these crazy like cases, and then he can just kind of walk out not free,
willy nilly. Somebody paid a
willy-nilly.
bail on him or something like that.
They dropped he had a $3 million when he went in 3 weeks ago, and now he only has 2.
What?
That's what I'm saying. Like, what the fuck? It's just wild. It's one of those and it's just gonna keep getting bigger, which I would love, again, if there's more facts and stuff that I can come out and talk to you for sure. But it's like one of those, like, this is the starting healing journey for me of like talking about it now, especially again, I can talk about it because, and just reading all these articles it helps me fill my obsession, if you will. Cause now I feel like you hurt my family, we got a problem.
Right, of course.
And if he was, watching us or anything like that, I would just, test that assumption and then take notes of the answer, take notes of the result, which is the nice way of saying fuck around and find out.
Right.
Because again, if he's willing to kill again, he was looking forward to it. He only has like $2 more million to be bailed out, if you will.
Bro. And if there's websites about this dude, like,
and that's the other thing. Like, if I find a GoFundMe for this man, I'm going to like, just saying. It's just
we're
wild.
laughing, but like, it's not.
You have to laugh.
It's not funny at all.
It's not at all. Like that's how we process. Like it's not. It's just how ironic. So.
Bro.
God forbid if I die. I'm telling you, I'll go out. Oh my God.
These guys are strapped. That's all I'll say. These guys are strapped.
We are.
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah. So
you were like, I saw the receipts. I've seen the receipts.
I've seen it.
It's just, I don't know. Like, I'm just happy that again you're talking to me about it, because this is the first time that like my husband and I don't even really talk about it. We talk about it, but I think he thinks it's too. All day when I go to work, and then all I can think about when I get home is, all this stuff. And it's just, it's nice to have like a quiet time, but then it's nice to like talk to you. Like, cause again, you knew about this stuff before it even happened.
Right.
And now it makes sense. It's like,
it was so funny. Cause again, and it's not funny, but again, to be able to connect the dots from that story. Cause I was telling somebody about it, and then I was like, I had no idea until I see this article that Christina posts, and like, oh my goodness, it's full circle. And like, it's crazy for me. It's like 1,000,000 times crazy for you having to be a part of these articles, like a part of the story, a part of the article, get interviewed and do it all over again, however many times.
I'll gladly do it over again, as long as, it's getting out there and like, something happens from this. Something has to happen from this, because I feel like if they're just letting multiple more families down, and like it has to stop. Like,
what does the actual answer? What does the actual vindication look like for you at the end of all this? What would you like to see happen?
Definitely a change in how they do the DNA testing, or like how which actually I heard that they're supposed to be doing a bill in September where if someone gets a hit on the CODIS or the DNA database, that the people, instead of sending an email, they have to physically like talk to somebody over the phone, and then that person on the phone has to write a receipt of, yes, I found, like, so it's
there's
the accountability.
some sort of paper trail
for sure. And I hope, that out of all this, that one, we just get an apology. Like, there's so many people that are a part of this that like signed off on, like, from the crime scene to her actual like death certificate. It's just like, please just be honest and do your job, or like just tell the family, you know, so we don't have to find out nationally.
Right.
And accountability and change, honestly. If they're going through with this new bill for the CODIS contacting and, someone actually physically picking it up and like saying, yes, I got this message, that's great. But it's also a little too late for other families. So change and accountability, like, it's all honestly,
it's what you need.
That's what we need, because it will help us heal. And then also, you gave a shit. You tried, because all these other times you just kind of failed, and we had to learn for ourselves.
Right.
Which sucks. Especially on a day like this. It's on TikTok, man.
It's on TikTok.
It's on TikTok. Like,
you TikTok famous.
I don't do TikToks, but I definitely watch them. But it's just wild. So I really appreciate, like, seriously, like, just sitting down and talking about it, because it makes it easier for me to process and just let it out, because.
And it's important that you do that. I think that's going to be sort of my final question as we round out here. Like, how are you coping with all this in the interim, in between, and do you feel like in the ways that you're coping that it's healthy?
This time around, for sure. Like I said, like, I have my sister, we can talk about it, which before we didn't really talk about it at all, to now we can, have communication in between us, and then, other people that like to talk and like have the same it's being seen. I feel like that's the best coping from right now. We're being seen and heard. I feel like that is like one of the greatest tools that I never had before, was not only can I talk about it, but other people are like bringing awareness. Like, as long as someone sees it, if someone can see it if anybody's listening, as long as someone listens and hears it, and then they're like, oh wow, that's really shitty, or like they look it up, the knowledge and like passing it on, like that's healing me, talking about it and raising awareness. Drinking also helps. Just kidding. But definitely communicating and finding better ways to do this, because this is my first time not doing anything, nothing crazy, no self-harming. It's one of those things where I am able to process and then grow as an adult, which is really hard because it sucks on some days, but
it sucks growing as an adult.
It helps. Those knees give out at 30. But this time around, I feel like just communicating, like, this has helped so much more. Like,
Good.
Like, it helps, like, relieve a little part of me, at least. So
Good.
It helps.
Good.
A lot.
Well, I hope, and you're still going to therapy?
Yes.
Perfect.
I'm telling you now, like, my therapist should get double the things, because like you said, I just sat down and it's like, by the way, my biological mother was murdered by a serial killer.
We thought she was just dead, but plot twist.
There we go. And the funny thing is, it was just not funny at all.
Right, it's not funny.
It's not funny, but you have to laugh.
Yes.
Like, this is how you have to get it. So we always joke, my sister and I, so me being adopted, she hid me. So, like, she hid so much of her, like, private life. Like, her life was literally, like, I mean, it was questionable, but, like, only in her true fashion could she have died. And then, by the way, I feel like it's her ode to, like, her case is for something. It's obviously raising something. But, of course, in her case, it kind of being dramatic, I think it's funny, because not that I'm dramatic or I'm ever any bit of crazy or whatever.
No.
It's just one of those things that, we have to laugh at that.
We got to.
You have to.
Yeah, of course. Well, were there any final details that I missed or that you would like to let people know as we start to round this out?
Other than just, if you ever have that spare time, it is definitely great reads. If you, YouTube, just Google Raul Meza Jr. I don't like giving the attention to that man at all, but we have to talk about it. Yeah. We have to talk about it. That's the only way to understand. And then hopefully, Texas can learn how to not have so many loopholes, and they can learn from this, because, again, nothing but good has to come out of this.
Right.
Period.
Well, hopefully.
Yes. Hopefully. I mean, it's going to be an ongoing process. This is just the beginning. So I'm sure you'll be my new therapist. And I'm glad to share.
Stay tuned for Christina. She's coming on next month.
Telling you. At least in August, because the DA is coming. The DA is going to talk to us. We have no idea, like, what's going on, which is great, because that's the only time anybody has reached out to us.
Okay.
But that's not until August. So who knows? Who knows if I'll be alive by then? I mean, clearly, it's Austin. How many serial killers have we got?
Well, there's two, apparently, right? There's him, and then there's the Lady Bird Lake
killer.
And all these men keep dying. We were just talking about this.
Yep. I think that.
I think it's a woman.
I think it's a woman. I really do, after you said that.
Like, that would be, and how ironic would that be, too, for it to be a woman and just killing men in, like, 2023. Instead of a man killing a woman. Like, 50, 40 years ago, it would have been a man killing, like that was
absolutely.
all the rage, right? Like
Bundy,
some serial, right?
Dahmer. I
Just
mean, it's
killing
all men other than
Ed
Eileen
Gein,
Wuornos.
right? Like you're killing all these women, and then reverse plot twist.
The Uno reverse card.
Right, reverse card that.
Boom. I mean, it's not funny, especially for all those families.
No,
like
not
I
at all.
can't even imagine, but it's one of those things that it's just talk about it. I'm glad that there's a whole face group about it because it just helps, I don't know, just theories and there's a place that everybody feels connected. That sounds really weird.
Community.
Yeah, it's a sense of, all right, this is, they're all working to help or to solve or to, they are great over there, by the way. You should honestly join that group. Like it is.
Which group is this?
The Ladybird
Lake.
Oh my God, the Ladybird Lake Killer. Their group, they actually had this guy go out on his, he had all these drones and he was like helping
Trying to look for the killer?
Yeah, or like looking for like any other bodies. Like he like goes out there like on Saturdays and gets in his little kayak and like sees if like, there's evidence or if there's like any, like he helps. Like there's these people that like go actively and help. So it's like, it's
This
a
is
great
like a whole
community.
Scooby-Doo case.
It really is.
I wonder if they'll catch him or her.
Find out next. I really do. I hope that at least they can get some closure. But
Right.
But I mean, as long as we're talking about it, that's how it stays alive. Like I feel like that's how.
And we thought it stopped happening for a bit.
Yeah.
And they were like, hey, they must have left town. And they're like, surprise,
Just kidding.
new dead body.
We're back, and that's wild because it was just this like couple days ago.
It was like literally
Like,
in
2
the
days
last
ago.
week. Yeah.
Yep. That's just wild. I'm telling you, you have to be safe out there and anywhere because you never know if you're crossing paths with a serial killer.
Literally hide your kids, hide your wife. Literally. Like literally.
Like, oh my God, this is the best therapy. And conclusive, that's the best therapy. Talking about it and laughing about it, even though, it's not the greatest thing.
It's not the greatest subject matter.
It's how we heal.
Yeah. Would you like to let people know where they could reach out to you if they want to or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't even know. What's my Instagram?
Yeah, do the Instagram thing. I know.
That's how most of those people started. That's nice. It's really cool though to see NBC in my DMs. I was like, all right. You can follow me at _C Fultz, which is CFULTZ 23. That's the only platform I really have. I'm not even doing OnlyFans anymore. I feel like
Oh, this is so good.
which I will say.
I mean, whatever. But like,
No.
Happy for you.
I'm getting old at this point, but
Them knees.
after 30, it just hits you. I actually had a follower that was like, hey, I live in Chicago, and we were watching the news, and he was like, I saw one of your interviews, and he was like with a group of his friends, and he was like, holy shit, I know her. Oh, I don't know her, I follow her. And one of the guys was like, what do you mean? And he was like, I buy her nudes. And that's a serial killer. Like, it was funny because he was like all the way in fucking Philly. And I was like, all right. He was like, I'm so sorry though. But
Wow.
it helps out to have people like share the information. So
Of course.
but thank you. But that's really all you can reach me at. And I really appreciate you just talking to me.
Of course.
It's great.
Always here and happy to do so. Everybody go follow Christina, and if you have any questions or details, or if you're news folk and you want to reach out to her, definitely I think that's a great way to do it. I appreciate you coming on, taking some time, and sharing your story. I think that's the most important part. I'm glad you had a good time. Hopefully everybody out there, y'all dig in on this story, because this is a very serious thing. We had a good time, but the subject matter, like we said, it's very serious. So also out there, if anybody out there is grieving with anything, don't forget. I think this podcast is a good, it's a good way of seeing how communication can be so helpful in those moments. So don't forget to speak to somebody next to you, around you, close to you, or even if you have the opportunity to do it, start therapy. So yeah, that's what I'll recommend. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Obviously, this is it's not live, so we're doing this on the replay. So whether it's morning, evening, afternoon, I do appreciate you. Feel free to follow me on all the social mediums: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. It's all Money Blake Weather, Unfiltered Bachelor. Look it up. Follow us. click like, do all the things. And until next time, we will see ya. Peace.
I love you.